Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Knockout Podcast, episode 42. 42 with a slight asterisk. That asterisk being record last week. We actually recorded what we both thought was a pretty good episode. Over the year and previewing the fights that were coming up on the weekend, and then also last night. But wonders of Craig, our sort of Discord recording bot, decided to not play ball and cut out half of our audio. So we're back with sort of 42 dash, but it still should be a good episode. Obviously still back with Jack. Jack, how are you doing?
Yep, not too bad. Yeah, it is a shame about that last one, the lost episode, we shall call it. And it's just crazy how we got every one of our predictions right, and we were like, so we called all the fights perfectly, but it's just a shame that no one was there to hear it. Very disappointing, obviously, but that's okay. We'll be back.
You'll just have to take our word for it. I specifically remember you saying, "Watch out for Carlos Felipe, Justin Taffer. That's a sleeper," and I was like,
"Yeah,
I'll take your word for
it." Yeah, and then Carlos Condit's gonna put in the best wrestling performance of his career. I also said that. It was just I was on something. And
you really were.
It was just, I don't know, Yauquin Buckley. I could see it. He dips low. He's going to get head kicked. Tell you. But alas, what are we going to do?
You're just going to have to take our word for it. But yeah, jokes aside, we will run through Holloway Kattar card, largely the main event, which obviously has garnered much sort of discussion and for the manner of the victory. We will look very briefly at the card that happened I guess during the sort of the evening. It's not even last night, really. During the evening, we'll sort of mainly just touch on the main event, and we'll look forward to Poirier-McGregor 2 at the weekend, which good co-main, and there's a few fighters of intrigue, but we'll mainly be looking at McGregor and Poirier and Hooker Chandler as that co-main. But we'll start with the fights of last weekend. We may as well just start at the top because there's the big takeaway. Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar. I mean, just reading it back, 50-43, 50-43, 50-42. I mean, it's I saw someone who I quite respect, who I sort of follow a lot, saying it was one of the best performances in the UFC he's ever seen. I mean, it was unbelievable from start to finish from Max Holloway.
Yeah, and those scorecards, like, I think judges in MMA are quite conservative, but in any other fight, to be honest, I've watched the fight a few times now, and like looking back, there's a genuine argument that every single round is at least a 10-8. Like, Kattar has moments of success in, like, say, the third. He does hurt Max a little bit, but it's very brief, and then Max is right back on him and and busting him up. So, like, genuinely, the first, the third, and the fifth could be 10-8s, and then I think the second and certainly the fourth are 10-7s. Which means that there's a decent argument, at least from me, this fight could be scored 50-38, and that is ridiculous. So it was essentially a beatdown for the ages. But yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. He did a lot of things that we said, and we did genuinely say these things. And that was that Kattar really backs up on a straight line, and Holloway is very good at taking very slight angles midway through his combinations. So he'll jab or he'll feint and then take a slight angle and carry on the rest of his combination. And he made Kattar pay for that by changing angles and changing levels very well. So punish the body and then punish the head. Max did that very effectively, and this fight really broke him down to the body. If you look at I think some of the records that Holloway broke for this fight was obviously the most significant strikes landed and thrown, but also he did break the record for most significant strikes landed to the head, and I think most significant strikes landed to the body. So it really showed how he broke Calvin down top to bottom, he was destroyed. But no, he just did like fantastic work. Got on him from the start. Didn't take him long to figure him out. And then like got his reads and really made Kattar pay for his kind of lack of kind of defensive depth and his poor footwork. Because Kattar was mostly relying on like a high guard, which he normally always does. Which is one of the other things that really led the body to be open. And then also just his other defense is really just kind of like countering to discourage you. But Max has, and this performance really showed it as well, that Max genuinely has, for my money, the best chin of all time. Like, it's insane. He's just made of iron. He just can't be hurt. It's crazy. And I think, that's another record I think he broke in this fight. It's the most fights in UFC without ever being knocked down. So it really was just a historic performance from Max overall, and absolutely fantastic. What did you think?
I mean, I can only really echo those words. It's like brutal from start to finish. I think from a lot of it was Max being incredible. I think for Kattar, I think there were some. He did make Holloway's task a bit easier, and like that's not to detract. Like as you said, that high guard is fine in isolation, but you can't just be if you're adopting a high guard and then just backing up onto the fence against Max Holloway. It's only going to end badly. I think someone I saw pointed out is constantly pulling away to his right, or well, to his left, but to Max's right, into Max's power hand. Max just getting that sort of right knee and that right hook just off at will, because Kattar was just pulling away into his power shots. I think it wasn't his best performance, and I think this is probably the fight to say. Well, I don't even know, because like how who else in this division was going to do that to Kattar other than Holloway? It's like honestly,
like not even Volkanovski, who is in his own right an absolutely fantastic fighter, like wouldn't have that kind of performance against Kattar. This is a uniquely Max Holloway performance, and beat him down in essentially the only in a way that only he could.
I mean that fourth round. I said it when I watched it. I think I watched it again the night after. I mean, Kattar's got some chin on. You talk about Max's chin, and if we're talking about longevity, but in that fight, I've no idea how Kattar didn't even go down in that fourth round. I think Herb Dean must have just thought he was a fan or something. The fans are back in. He might have just got himself confused. He didn't go down, but I'm like, some of that is tough to watch. Fourth round.
No, like genuinely, like this was on I think on network American television, like in the day, and like in a way it's kind of a bad introduction for MMA fans, because like it was fairly disgusting, to be honest. Like I don't understand why referees let Max do that to people, like Ortega as well. It's just like permanently altering like their life and career, and it's terrible. And like also like the Soriano, like I think Herb Dean literally just wants to see a man die in the cage. Like the Soriano Todorovic fight earlier in the night as well was also a very late stoppage from Herb Dean. I think Herb Dean was the Jai Herbert like stoppage like last year that was absolutely awful as well. He's had lately a few really bad stoppages.
It's just this.
This could have.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was saying really Herb Dean should have been really looking closely at this fight from the second round onwards, and then as soon as it kind of the third, so the second, third, fourth, there are arguments for stopping it in really kind of all of those rounds, and the fact that it wasn't stopped in the fourth was just disgraceful, to be honest. I don't know how Calvin Kattar will bounce back from it, and how he'll look. Ortega certainly seemed to not be too permanently damaged from his fight with Max, but that's possibly an outlier. So we'll have to see how Kattar looks coming back. But I think he should take a very long time out, a couple of years, to be honest.
Probably. It just seems like I think there just seems to be such a lack of willingness to end a fight when it's standing up. Like, I think about the Gaethje Ferguson one, and that's perhaps the only one that sticks in my mind. But we're talking about Ferguson literally carrying over and turning his back.
Yeah.
So if Kattar had like slipped a minute earlier into that fourth round pummeling on the ground, that fight gets stopped in an instant as soon as he hits the floor. It's just this bizarre. It's sort of like in football. Again, not a very good analogy. There's all this argument about sort of football players diving to win a penalty, but if they stay on their feet and the foul still happens, the ref doesn't give a penalty. So if Kattar is strong-willed and has an iron chin and doesn't go down, himself more damage, because as soon as there just seems to be no willingness to stop it. I mean, I can talk about their corner as well. I mean, the corner comes back in the fourth, and he's not saying anything. He's breathing. He can't catch his breath. He's still out of breath by the end of the thing, and all they're saying is, Calvin, just keep your back off the fence and just land that big shot. I'm like, were we watching the same round? The fence was the only thing keeping him up in that fourth round.
Oh, no.
It's just like I've not got Calvin's career at stake. I'm not personally invested in his career to the extent that his coaches are. But there's an argument said, if you are investing in his career, the more sensible decision is to take him out of there. Don't let him have that. I mean, that last round, I don't think was particularly bad, but it was unnecessary damage.
Oh, so it was like, I mean, it wasn't particularly bad in the context of the fight, but like, as I said, looking at that round in isolation, I'd still call that probably a 10-8 round. Like, Kattar got very little accomplished. And was getting battered from pillar to post, really. Not the kind of nearly ending the fight damage that some of the other rounds had, but it was fairly decisive. I mean, very decisive and still very damaging. And yeah, like, even to be fair, at some points, Kattar did, from one of the body shots, he did seem to kind of cower away a little bit, but then kind of got back into it. And then I think in the fourth, they broke at some points. Like, Max went to a bit more range, and you could see Kattar could barely stand up. Like, he was wobbling all over the place. And like, as a referee, if you see a fighter that can, like, it is a miracle he's still standing and is like doing a dance in the middle of the cage, you should, after a sustained beating, you should really stop that. So yeah, it was real bad. But no, Max looked absolutely fantastic. He mixed his weapons.
I don't want to sort of. I feel like I had to have that. I feel like I had to bring that in, but I don't want that to detract from. It's not Max's job to stop the fight, and he kept going. And as you said, as you were going to say, the variety of weapons was something that we said. I think this is an evolution. The thing that not surprised me. The thing that I was like happy to see is like that early start. I mean, okay, normally he wins those early rounds, but we're not talking about that kind of output. And I think that's a good habit for Max to get in, because he can go 25 minutes at that pace. So why have the, not even unnecessarily slow, but like, when you can go at a faster pace, why bother slowly building into the fight?
I think that was something specific to Kattar, and I think it's probably just due to he got his reads early. So, like, one thing Max did very well in this fight is he really did just obviously he really kept on Kattar, but it was always, he mixed in all the weapons that were going to be, pretty much all of them, that were going to be used throughout the fight very early to establish them as threats. And then this was probably Max's best kind of feinting performance. So he mixed in all his weapons quite early in the first round, and then throughout the rest of the fight, he was feinting them, and Kattar was really biting on the feints and really worried about them. And from there, Max just had really brilliantly varied entries and ways that he could get in and initiate exchanges against Kattar. And even when Kattar landed counters, Max did a real good job of returning on them after that, to the point that Kattar landed quite a few counters, but Max still won the exchanges. And it's genuinely one of the most high percentage, this isn't an official stat. I don't know if they've really measured this. It's kind of subjective anyway, but like Max won 95+% of the exchanges. Like there are a few where like Kattar dinged him and Max backed off a little bit. He landed a good uppercut, I think, in the third round. But other than that, Max won every single exchange, even in ones where he got hit. So he did that very well. And then, yeah, the variety of the weapons. I know Max has done, I don't know how recently it's been, but there's been pictures of him working with I'm going to butcher his name. He's like a very famous Nakmoy. He's like one of the greatest of all time, like Samart. Samart, I'm going to call him because I don't know how to say his last name. He's like, there's like pictures and video of him working with him, and you can really see it in the way that Max is kind of like Muay Thai is evolving and becoming more of a factor in the last two fights specifically.
Knees and elbows were great in this one especially.
Yeah, the elbow was fantastic. Like just lined him up perfectly and cracked him like so many times. But yeah, that was fantastic. And like this, I'm just like every like minute there's something new comes to my house. Oh yeah, Max did this amazing. He did this amazing. It's just like there was so much. He did so much, and he did it all so well. Massively improved head movement, I'd say, for Max as well. Max generally like has decent head movement, but he can often square up in his stance, and that's when he'll get caught. He didn't really have any of that this fight. Not much squaring up, and his head movement looked better overall, and he was using it to initiate exchanges brilliantly as well. Yeah, literally, like in pretty much every facet of the game, Max looked superb and just amazing. There's not much really that you can say. It was like, I think Daniel Cormier summed it up, although he did kind of ruin it after. But after the fight, Daniel Cormier was like, it's the kind of performance that just leaves you absolutely lost for words. And it really is. It was like truly brilliant.
I mean,
I think is
no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I think it will fit into probably what you're going to say anyway.
Well, I was just saying, sort of like looking forward. See, as you said, please, Calvin Kattar, take a long time out. Let's not have any like thoughts of sparring for 9 months, please. I mean, Holloway didn't even spar before this fight. That was something that was brought up. But I mean, for Holloway, it feels like there's nothing else other than the winner of Ortega versus Volkanovski, really.
Yeah, well, like, so this is like kind of what I was just about to say, is that it's rare. I don't know, like many examples. I don't know if any really in MMA, other than like Khabib maybe. But probably there are some in boxing that you can think of, but my boxing history knowledge isn't good enough. But it's Max Holloway is essentially a certified all-time great, like top 5 ever. Like he is fantastic. And in terms of like some of the other all-time greats are older, come from a slightly kind of worse era. So he's genuinely one of the best fighters of all time, undoubtedly, and he's still kind of this performance and the second Volkanovski fight kind of showed that he's still in his prime, probably. I think that's just quite rare for a fighter to be a definitive all-time great and still be in their prime. It's quite special. And so you said there's like, obviously the Volkanovski Ortega winner is an option, but like going outside of that, like Max can just be, even if like he's not necessarily fighting for belts, but like Max can just go to 155, say, and have like some big fights there. Like I don't think Khabib's interested in coming back, but that would be a good fight. If McGregor beats Poirier at the weekend, which we'll get onto later, I think that's also a very good fight. So really, Max can just be going round kind of for the rest of his prime, kind of just having absolutely like dream fights, because it's rare to see two. I mean, I mean, but that's the thing about the kind of Volkanovski fight is that like two kind of all-time greats in their prime fighting together is very rare, which is the appeal of a Volkanovski fight. But also then other legacy fights for Max are very interesting as well. Something that would just add to his kind of status as one of the all-time greats. So I don't know. I'm not that bothered if like Max doesn't necessarily get a title shot straight away. Just because I'd go and watch Max fight anyone pretty much. So I don't care who he wants to fight.
There are options out there for him, certainly.
Yeah. So I really would like to see it.
Still want that him versus Zabit 5 round of
Oh, that would be brilliant. I don't know. Like, part of me wants that a lot, but also part of me just thinks that's a bit cruel. So I don't know. It would be quite good, but yeah, it could get brutal by the third round.
But also, it just you know, as you said, who knows what he'll do with the title? Who knows what the UFC? But for a guy to have lost twice, okay, you know, as I always caveat, second one close, very close. I think there's any argument to said that he won. For him to have lost twice, the same guy in two title fights, we have one performance, and immediately everyone is just saying there is no other option. If he's staying at 145, there's no other option but to give him another shot, even though he's 0-2 against this guy. It just goes to show you that it's just remarkable.
It is. Like, I think it's just you really get going back to kind of like he's an all-time great still in his prime. It's like normally you're kind of nostalgic about a guy's career and like looking back wistfully, like when he is out of his prime, when he's on the downward slope. But like it's almost like we're looking back on Max Holloway's career, like, oh, you can look back and think about all the great things he's accomplished, and then you still think of all the things he can still go on to do. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he'll do, but whatever he does, I think it will be amazing. So yeah, I'm very excited. I personally, to be honest, like the Volkanovski fight, I think can wait a little bit. Let Volkanovski fight Ortega, obviously, that's booked, and then if there's someone else after that, you could fight them as well. Maybe probably beat them, and like Holloway can fight McGregor or something. Just keep him away from Justin Gaethje because I don't want to see that. But other than that, I think he'll be in fantastic fights. So yeah, Max truly at the peak of his powers.
It's very true. Moving on from that, so yeah, Holloway case obviously the main attraction. What else on this card? I mean, we had Carlos Condit, Matt Brown, which, as we said, you predicted would be the wrestling coming out party for Carlos Condit. I feel slightly aggrieved, as did Matt Brown, that he didn't win that first round. I'm not really sure how he didn't get one of the judges to give him that first, let alone two or three. Good win for Condit. I think I'm not quite sure. I saw somewhere, or some people reporting that this was his last fight on his contract.
Yeah, I think that is true.
Then there was some suggestion that in terms of the post-fight interview, they were asking who would you want next. So who knows whether there's still a future. I mean, there's not. But I mean, he's 36, but there's still opportunities for him to have.
He is an old 36 though in terms of like fight years.
Yeah. I mean, I just pulled up that Wikipedia, and that sort of it's sort of 2 wins between November 2012 and December 2018. It's not looking good, but yeah, I think there's some fun old man fights for him to have at welterweight.
Let's
get Condit versus Lawler, just like the two old guys who have completely lost it. Just run it back.
I think that would be quite depressing.
Would be.
It'd be so much worse than the first fight. Yeah, it'd just be like, in comparison, like what the fights were only 5 years apart, and you could see it like oh my god, they're so much worse. No, I don't know about that. That would make me very sad. But yeah, it was a fun enough fight. They're both so like kind of shot, but old man fights are okay. It's probably better that they're fighting each other and not fighting someone that's going to completely blast their head off. Although there is an argument to be made if they fought like a really young, like up and comer that blasted their head off, that they might retire sooner, and maybe in the long run that's better for them. So that is an argument, but I don't mind it. It was fun. And then the rest of the main card was just quite quick knockout. Yeah, sorry, got ahead of myself.
Right. No, you go for it.
Yeah, just like then the rest of the main card were just quite quick knockouts. Like the Lee Ponzinibbio one was just like Ponzinibbio looked fairly bad, just didn't really have any method of reliably initiating. Like kicked his leg a few times, but then after that just looked completely impotent. And then Lee caught him with a left hook that he threw about 50 times in the 4 minutes that the fight was going, and knocked his head off. But it was a bit like, it just like Ponzinibbio's taken so much time out. All of his prime's essentially been wasted away due to injuries, and it's a bit sad, but what you're gonna do?
Yeah, that was not ideal. The Joaquin Buckley hype train comes to a delay. I mean, I think when I looking back, everyone seems to forget, albeit it was a late notice fight. Him against Kevin Holland on his UFC debut wasn't a pretty sight.
Yeah, he got dead.
He's obviously got two. He's obviously got 2 wins since then. Alessio de Chirica, I think that's how you say it. I mean, for him, it's a cracking win because he was 3 on the skid, and you wonder whether what a loss could have done there. But good win for him, and they'll clearly have to be more careful moving forward with Joaquin Buckley if they want to maintain their. I'll look at the crazy knockout this guy did, but he's actually still beating guys up. Look,
yeah.
So just have him fighting guys just sort of coming in on their debut on short notice, and he can just knock them out.
Yeah, I think.
Did you see this knockout?
Pretty much, that's what he's going to be useful for. I think, like, because he's not particularly good. But like he does have like obviously kind of growing room. How old is he? I assume he's young. He's 26, so like he has had 16 fights though, but he does have some growth left. So if he can turn things around, like he could be interesting going forward. But from the looks of him, he looks like to be the kind of guy that will get a scary looking knockout and then get knocked out in a scary looking way the next fight. And that's probably just going to be a bit of Yaukin. That's probably going to be him for a while. Because he doesn't really just seem to have any kind of reliable way of getting the kind of fight he wants. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's that good, but he can be fairly exciting. So that's cool.
Yeah. Soriano Todorovic. Yeah, we sort of mentioned this. This was a really weird one. Todorovic was sort of essentially knocked out. He was like out on his feet trying to find his mouth guard, which went like under the octagon again.
Yeah,
you could sort of see him like reaching down to get his mouth guard, standing up, sort of wobbling all over the place. I'm like, this guy's getting knocked out as soon as the fight restarts. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And lo and behold, another mouth guard was retrieved. The first shot he took, and down he went. Very bizarre, but a good win for Soriano because Todorovic was a guy that still does. One result doesn't necessarily change that, but was a guy that was coming in with a certain degree of hype and sort of promise behind him. So yeah, Soriano in his own right. He's now 8-0. So yeah, a good fight with 2 sort of young prospects who hopefully will still be sort of in and around the division later on in a few years' time.
Yeah, it was a very late stoppage. I think there was, I can't remember. I think there were about 3 knockdowns, weren't there? Something like that. But I think after the second one, from what I remember, you could stop it, and then there was a different time. Like there were quite a few good moments to stop this. And I think this was quite late. But yeah, I'm not sold on Soriano. I think it's a similar. It's probably cutting away my bias. I don't like fighters that are really reliant on counterpunching. MMA, like in MMA, initiative, and Max Holloway showed this. Initiative is so important, and that's basically how he beat Kattar. He just never let Kattar like dictate the fight. It was always on his terms. And Soriano doesn't really have a way to seize the initiative other than landing a big shot and really hurting you. But outside of that, it's just kind of him waiting to land an overhand left, which like he missed on quite a few times, but like Todorovic was pulling back in the same way every time, and then Soriano kind of just delayed it a little bit and managed to reach him, and that was what started it. But yeah, he doesn't have a reliable way to like seize the initiative and go about his work for me to like him. So yeah, I'm not sold on him. I think he needs to kind of get more leading weapons and develop his kind of entries. But he hits hard, so he's always going to be dangerous. He's got an eye for a counter, and he can adapt his timing, which is what he did to Todorovic. So like he's dangerous, but I just don't think he's that good. But yeah.
Well, the future will tell. The last one we had down to touch on was, which, as I said before, we did predict, Felipe Taffa, which actually was a really, really enjoyable weight scrap. Taffa, for a guy who's, I mean, I don't know how many amateur fights he's had, but for a guy who's only had 6 MMA fights total, 3 of which have come in the UFC, and he's lost 2 of them, still looks to be, to me, quite a fun guy to watch.
Yeah, no, like I really actually do quite enjoy Justin Taffa. As like off-brand as it is to enjoy kind of heavyweight fights. But no, he's like just kind of, I think, just more fun Taito Ivasa. He worked well with the body kick in this fight. He worked that really well. And then the leg kick as well, which he did. Like the amount of damage he put on Felipe's leg from a lead leg kick to the leg was very impressive. Like obviously they're heavyweights, and I know they kick very hard, but still that was mighty impressive. Managed to break Felipe's stance quite a few times. So yeah, I thought that was good. But Felipe did then start to pour it on in the second round, started working the body a lot more with combinations, but then Taffa adapted and started to do that himself as well. And then they were like forehead to forehead in the second and the third, just swinging wild. And like genuinely a very fun, like up there with one of the best, like some of the best heavyweight fights you'll see in a uniquely kind of heavyweight way. So yeah, I thought it was very fun. Great fight.
It was,
and yeah, it's a bit like a shame that they didn't get a fight of the night for that, because obviously, like Holloway said in the cage, like Kattar, you'll get 50k for that, which like after the beating he took, he probably deserved. But Felipe Taffa was probably a more deserved fight of the night just because it was a fight, whereas Holloway Kattar wasn't really a fight.
Yeah, I could sort of see Holloway Kattar being sort of more deserving of the performance in terms of, as you said, that I'm not sure how much of a fight it was for large portions of that 25 minutes.
Yeah, I think like it's in part like because Max said in the cage, like Kattar will get 50k for that. I think they kind of had to give it to him after Max said that.
Yeah.
Like it was Max's moment. He called his shot, and like you can't really deny him. But also, I'm kind of glad because Kattar deserves it after that. So in the end, it's probably the wrong result, but I'm happy about it anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, I think generally a pretty good card. Obviously, that cracking main event. In terms of looking at the fights last night or yesterday afternoon, we're only really going to touch on the main one, and even then, it's sort of again perhaps the only I forget we didn't actually have the podcast last week. The only prediction that we did actually say was expected Chiesa Magny, which I think anyone who knows these two fighters knew it was going to be. It was going to be a grindy, cage clinch ground for performance for 25 minutes, and it did end up that way. But Michael Chiesa came out on top. A good solid win for him, and sort of he begins to really stake his name. The welterweight division now with 4 wins on the bounce, albeit some of them against questionable competition. Diego Sanchez and all. A good performance, a good win, and it's very grindy, sort of workmanlike performance.
No, it was that, but I was actually quite impressed with Chiesa as a grappler. I mean, we know he's good, but I was very impressed with him in this fight. His pressure, the shoulder pressure on the ground, and his guard passing was very good. He got to mount basically whenever he wanted. Magny couldn't stop his progression. And then Magny also used leg entanglements to create scrambles, but Chiesa always managed to kind of roll with them and end up on top, often just taking mount straight from a leg entanglement as well. So yeah, he's very well schooled on the ground. Very good there. Didn't look really at any point to have a solid submission threat though. So obviously Magny's a good grappler as well, but obviously that would be a nice thing if he can really work that into a more kind of reliable way to get to a submission. But overall, I'm very impressed with Chiesa as a grappler. But it was, as we said, a grindy performance, pretty much as we expected.
Yeah, good side. We were saying before we came on. I think we both think that, as you said, a good win, and I think he showed a lot of skills on the ground. I'm not sure as to his sort of long-term fatal capabilities in welterweight. I think there's a lot of guys in there who perhaps have more sort of versatile arsenal in terms of in the fight up. I think welterweight is not the division where you can probably get. It's probably one of the divisions where you're going to get by least if you're just wrestling, because there's so many good wrestlers in there who've also got the capability to strike well with you.
Who are much better strikers than Michael Chiesa. Usman would absolutely terrorize him on the feet. So I don't know. Chiesa is just far too limited. He did a few good kind of ducking entries into clinches from kind of open space. He did that quite well. So he's got entries into the clinch from striking range, but he doesn't have the striking or can do that reliably enough to really avoid some of the more dangerous people in this division on the feet. So I think he's very limited in how far he can go. He might make top 5. But I think top 10, which he's at now, is around his limit. So we'll see what he does next. But I don't know, someone like he called out Colby Covington. I think Colby would probably have his way with him, to be honest.
Yeah, but we'll see. There's time. I mean, this was actually I didn't look it up, but this feels like his first fight in. Yeah, I mean his first. Oh well, he did fight. Yeah, well, he fought in January. First fight in about a year, but he's got time, and I felt like he can get better in that, and he probably knows he needs to, but it's probably a bit too late in his career to see the sort of kind of diversification of his offense to the point where it's going to make him truly competitive against the elites in the 170 division. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think like he can like improve kind of technically and his skills, but like he kind of is who he is now, and stylistically, I don't think he's going to change. He can get better at some of the things he's already good at, but I don't think he's going to add new wrinkles to his game. So yeah, he can just who he is at this point.
Elsewhere on that, we sort of neither of us have really had time to watch a lot of that card, but disappointing to see Munir Laziz lose. He was a guy, I think he beat Abdulrazak Al Hassan and looked quite good. So annoying to see sort of Wally Alvarez come in at late notice and beat him, and then call out Nate Diaz of all people, or it might have been Nick Diaz. I'm not even quite sure. It's like steady on. Yeah, Lerone Murphy, who we previewed, got a good win against Douglas Silva de Andrade, or Andrade, however you say it. Good win for him. He seems to be a guy that really is just nowhere. Really came in on late notice against Tukagov and obviously got that drawn now. A couple of wins. Obviously, it's difficult for these sort of British and European fighters to build a lot of momentum because they're seemingly only fighting at this current moment. There's only opportunities to fight maybe sort of 3 times a year with various restrictions in place, but hopefully he can get another fight when the next fight island comes around. But yeah, he's a guy that there's a long way to go. I don't think Andrade is anywhere near, top sort of 20.
Yeah, Andrade is decent. Like, he's a good challenge. I gave Pereira a not terrible fight. But like, yeah, I didn't watch the fight yet. I've only watched the main event. But I'll watch it later. And yeah, I think Lerone Murphy, I've seen like kind of highlights, little bits of him, and he looks pretty good. I like the look of him. So yeah, when I watch that, I'll probably have more to say for his next fight. But no, I'd like Andrade is decent.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, there's not a whole lot else. We did have Davison Figueiredo and I think Khabib's sort of brother and cousin fighting on the prelims. They both seem to got wins, but I haven't seen those fights. That's really we have for this bit of it. So we can sort of move to the last bit of this episode, and that is looking forward to the weekend's fights, McGregor Poirier 2, everything else on that card. There's some good fights on there. Paras Sayukian, we mentioned before we came on. That's a really good fight to keep your eye on. That's headlining the prelims. The Hebas is fighting. That'll be good to see how she gets on. Ottman Azaita, I think he's undefeated and seems good. Jessica Rai, Joanne Caldwood will probably not be as good. But
Jessica Rai is my least favourite fighter, I think. She's just so bad. She's so bad as a fighter and then just so cringy as a person that I just cannot enjoy a Jessica Rai fight. Yeah, brilliant.
We'll try. Well, that is your. If you're staying up for it, that is the go get the coffee, go get the snacks.
Yeah,
we're nearly there. Let's just push into the last 2.
Yeah, I can't believe that they've put that right before the co-main as well. It's like you want to build up a good card and like build excitement towards the main event. Why put Jessica Rai, Joanna Cole? Unless they literally put it as like, yeah, go have a break. But like breaks between fights are generally long enough that you can go do whatever. Like I don't understand the placing of that as the third down the list. It's fairly ridiculous. Literally any other fight could go above that. So yeah, whatever. Which is like a bit harsh on Joanne Calderwood, but you're fighting Jessica Rai. What do you expect?
I mean, that'll be. I can. I haven't done a bet in a couple of weeks, but that has got split decision victory for either or written all over it.
It really does.
So we will see. We'll move though to the co-main event. Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler. for obvious contractual reasons, as with the rest of the UFC, we can't mention the organization that Michael Chandler came from. He's just a champion from outside the UFC. No other organizations exist. The former Bellator weight champion, although did lose that a couple of fights ago. Comes in to fight Dan Hooker, who last fight was that amazing fight, which he lost against Dustin Poirier, who is obviously headlining. I really don't know how I see this one going, but I think I favour Hooker. Chandler just comes in with seemingly a lot of hype from the UFC, but I don't feel like hype is perhaps sort of spread out amongst sort of the fans and sort of people I sort of respect talking about him. It seems like he's just sort of here because he's another name, but I'm not sure he's. I mean, he could prove wrong. I'm not sure whether he will occupy sort of similar position to Hooker as sort of like the best of the rest, or whether he can actually put on a good display and sort of chuck his name in the hat for the sort of top 5 for the division.
No, it's like he is like a good fight. Like he's obviously a very good fighter. He does come to the UFC probably a little or a decent amount post prime. Is one thing to consider. Like Michael Chandler has been around for quite a long time. I think his fights with Eddie Alvarez were like the first one was 2011, something like that, which is crazy. The first fight with Eddie Alvarez was 2011. Like he's been around for a long time, and he's 34, so he's not too old. But he's definitely past his best. So it'd be interesting to basically just see kind of where he's at as of now. But I'd agree with you that I'd favour Hooker. I think that Hooker's a lot bigger, like a lot taller, a lot longer, and has decent weapons out at range to punish Chandler. Probably like just the jab and the calf kick. And I think when Chandler first lost his Bellator title against Brent Primus, it was that I think he got kicked in the calf, and then like it was a similar thing to what happened with Cejudo in the second Demetrius Johnson fight, but it stopped the fight. So maybe like his legs are a bit vulnerable, so Hooker can have good success kicking that. And then also on the inside, Hooker's actually very dangerous on the inside for a big man. Probably even more dangerous than at range. He's got very good knees and uppercuts. And for an opponent that's much shorter than him and someone that's probably going to be maybe level changing at a few points in this fight, Hooker's probably going to have opportunities to really hurt him. But so I'd definitely favour Hooker in probably quite an exciting fight, because Chandler is good on the feet as well. He can counter decently. So I expect probably my main bet would probably be like Hooker to win an exciting fight, or it's possible that Chandler can win quite a grindy fight against the cage, get a few takedowns, and Chandler can win that way. Or maybe he could like grind Hooker against the fence and then punch on clinch breaks and hurt him maybe, and also it could be an interesting fight and Chandler win that way. But my two main predictions would be Hooker in quite an exciting fight, or Chandler in quite a boring fight. So we'll see what we get.
We will. I don't think I have too much to add. I think, as I said, I favour Hooker. He's got that experience. I only wonder his sort of his ability to get hit quite a lot. I think Chandler is a guy that, especially early on, strikes me as quite an explosive guy, and I fear Hooker's tendency to get sort of clipped early on, get sort of embroiled in a war, could perhaps serve to be a downfall early on if Chandler can Chandler can get a quick counter off, as you said. But we'll see. I think I favour Hooker just ever so slightly. But we'll see.
Yeah, like that is a thing. Like Chandler is very explosive and does hit hard, but like Hooker is another guy that is like legendarily tough at this point. Barbosa really had to break down his body to finish him, and then like Poirier landed some big shots on him, Felder landed some big shots on him, and he is legendarily tough. So I don't see Chandler knocking him out. And it's only a 3-round fight. Hooker can fade a little bit, but as I said, it's only a 3-round fight, so it shouldn't be an issue. So yeah, I think it should be a good one, is what I think with Hooker winning.
Let's hope so. Well, with all that sort of being said, we can move to the main event. It's actually written down here as Poirier McGregor. I don't know whether that's just a case of, I'm surprised McGregor's not the first one out there, but I don't know what that's. Perhaps just because it was Poirier McGregor the first time, so they wanted to do Poirier McGregor. I don't know.
Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know if Poirier's ranked higher than him. If he is, that could be it.
Yeah, possibly.
I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor. Obviously, they're rematch of a sort, but that feels slightly disingenuous because it was many moons ago. Although perhaps I see a similar result, maybe not outcome. And so I think it's fair to acknowledge that Poirier has moved up a weight class and sort of grown a lot in a sort of a physical sense. You know, he's not big of a guy, but also in a technical sense. Do you think that this sort of Dustin Poirier we see now is a guy who can sort of reverse that result of 6 years ago, or however long ago it was?
It is possible. Like, I remember when McGregor came back for the Cowboy fight, I wasn't really interested in it at all, because Cowboy was a stylistic layup for McGregor. This is like, I favour McGregor. I think he probably will knock him out fairly early. But it's not like an open and shut case like the Cowboy fight was to me. Poirier has defensively improved fairly significantly since the first fight. His guard is now like the weird kind of Philly shell, but also whatever it is, I don't know. Poirier's guard is very good for MMA, and one of the things that Max had a lot of trouble with when they fought the second time. So I think that can, and is also kind of specialized for blocking straight shots, which is obviously McGregor's dangerous weapon. Although in the first fight, McGregor did make the adaptation and came deep and caught him with a hook. So it is possible that he can do that again, but it's a more active guard than it used to be. So I think Poirier's guard will keep him in it early. And then Poirier's also a lot better now at kind of building off his jab and kind of just generally building combinations. And I also think that he can have some success if he kicks Conor's leg. He's a decent leg kicker. He's never really been dedicated to it, but it's there. And he did it a few times in the first fight. So I think Poirier can have success, and he can. But another thing is that he could also, if he can clinch up with McGregor, he's a much better clinch fighter. And if he can get McGregor's back to the fence, McGregor really isn't very good when he's kind of confined like that. Nate Diaz isn't a very good clinch fighter, but really could pin Conor against the fence and kind of beat him up from the clinch when Conor was against the fence. So I think Poirier can do very good work there, and kind of, if he makes the early rounds quite grindy, Poirier can have a lot of success later, I think. So that would be my kind of path to success for Poirier, which is the result I'd want. I'd really want Poirier to win, but I'd probably say McGregor knocks him out the second round, maybe. It'll be a bit more difficult than the first fight, but I think it will fairly end in a similar way, to be honest. McGregor will get his reads and finish Poirier.
I feel largely the same. We don't know what the game plan has been from Poirier, and perhaps we'll see a tactical evolution or adaptation. But I look at all the fights he's won and he's been involved in. Hooker, Khabib was obviously slightly different, but Holloway, Alvarez, Gaethje, essentially his last 4 wins were, wars.
Yeah, like blood and guts wars. That is what he's been doing.
Just not sure that early on against Conor, that is a strategy that's going to work particularly in your favour. I think if he perhaps goes to wrestling, that's something that has been talked about. I'm not sure his wrestling is perhaps up to the level where it's something that he can go to as a first choice. But I think if he can keep it tight, go to his leg kicks, which you said, which I think is something that not enough people go to when they fight against Conor. Go to the leg kicks, just like keep himself safe in those early couple of rounds. I do think he's got the ability to get to get stuff off and have success. I just fear early on him getting into range. If McGregor gets his reads on him early, that sort of like jump, well, not like that sort of like step in that Poirier does to get in range and get his sort of short range stuff off is going to be dangerous.
He does shift a lot to get into range, and Conor is better as a counterpuncher when he's the one pressuring. He's a very kind of pressure counterpuncher. So if you get Conor like going backwards, he's not as dangerous on the counter. So, but still, like the shifts probably do leave Poirier a bit vulnerable. But I think we'll have to. I think he can push McGregor backwards with his jab. He does have a very good jab, and as I said, he builds off it a lot better than Conor does. Conor doesn't really have that much of a jab to speak of, to be honest. And his head movement is like decent in places. He can slip and counter. But like Poirier is actually a very good counterpuncher, to be honest. So if he could play like a kind of aggressive counterpunching game himself, that could also be interesting. I'd like to see it. I don't know how much success he'd have with it. I'm kind of just thinking out loud here, but but I think that'd be interesting from Poirier. And then, kind of make it a bit grindy early on, because he does have a huge cardio advantage, I think. McGregor got very tired, obviously, in like the Diaz fights, and if you look at like, say, the second Diaz fight where Conor was tired by the second or the third round, it was fought at nowhere near the pace that like the Holloway fight was, or really kind of the Hooker fight was. Poirier's gone longer fights, looked better at a much higher pace. So if it does go late, I think Poirier should have a massive advantage. I think if he can get McGregor to work early on.
It's like it's the sort of catch-22 of getting McGregor to work to time out, but then being careful with that work and not overexposing yourself early on, because whilst you need him to work early to time out late, you make him, if you're sort of too careless with that work, then you're not going to get to the late rounds.
You get blasted,
So we'll see. It'll be an interesting one. I said I'd really love to see do the job on him. I've got nothing against McGregor. I just think Poirier is a guy that's like in a hell of a lot of wars, and to see him get a win like this would be fantastic. Equally well, I wouldn't be gutted if McGregor won, but I think it'd be really nice to see Poirier get a win. But I would side with McGregor for the sort of reasons that we've both put forward.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely side with McGregor, but as with you, I really want Poirier to win. But I think it is a fight that I'm very interested in. Whereas, like, comparing to the Cerrone fight, I just wasn't that interested in it.
Well, and it's down at down at 155 again, which as much as everyone hangs on about Conor fighting at 155, and that's the weight. This will only be his third fight at 155. He's fought, I think, 3 times now
in the UFC.
In the UFC. So if he can, he looks like he's in good shape from the stuff I'm seeing. So I think if we can have a year where he's fighting regularly, then that'll be great. But yeah, who knows? We shall see.
No, I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, it should be a good fight. I don't see Poirier going down as early as he did last time, and I think he'll make a fight of it, even if I do see him then getting knocked out a bit later
on. Well, unless there's anything else you wanted to mention.
No, I don't think so. I think that's all I can think of.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thank you for listening, everyone. I actually had a quick look just now. We do actually have no fights the week after next. I imagine that's a consequence of the sort of midweek fight, the midweek fight card that we had, yesterday. So I'm sure we'll be back next week to discuss Poirier and McGregor 2. But there won't be fights to preview, and we can then look forward to Overeem Volkov, which happens the week afterwards, which actually has got Corey Sandhagen, Frankie Edgar on it.
Oh, I've just seen that card, and the fact that Sandhagen Edgar isn't the main event and Volkov Overeem is criminal.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
But has also got Beneil Dariush versus Carlos Diego Ferreira, which is nice.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. So cool. those two should serve as some nice ones. So yeah, that's for a couple of weeks down the line. But yeah, we'll be back hopefully next week to talk about everything that's happened this week, and everything that happens tomorrow night. But yeah, stay safe, everyone. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.